Hello and welcome to HiveState Bakugan. Today we are continuing, well, what we've been doing. We're going through every single card in the Bakugan Battle Planet Battle Brawlers set. So let's just roll right into it with Darkus. Starting with the action cards, we have Chaotic Darkness. This is a single cost card and you just choose a player to discard a card. I like it. It has a couple uses and it's cheap. You can make your opponent get rid of cards if they're not playing Darkus, or that one Arliss. Then it's just going to hurt them. They got to choose something to get rid of. It's never good. It's almost like taking a damage in this game. But if you have cards that you can discard to play for free, well, then there's just a little bonus for you. Good card all around. Cloak in Shadow. Costs 2 energy. And it gives you 3 damage, so it's just a hint below par on that little damage to energy ratio. But it has Shadow Strike, so that can be well worth it. If your opponent played anything to lower your B or damage, well, now it's back to the way it was. Something just fell. Corrupting Mist is the third card. It's 4 cost. You get plus 100 B power for each damage your Bakugan has. This can be wonderful or terrible. All depends on the Bakugan you're using. There's a couple damage-based builds in the next set that I can see this working really well with, but we're not talking about the next set yet. We're still on this one, so. Corrupting Mist. I think it's usable, especially depending on the deck. Curse of Darkness only costs 2, and its normal effect for minus 2 damage is not worth playing. Just don't use it. There's better cards. But the sacrifice, if you have a second card in hand, especially remember, you can get all these different little discard plays going. It can basically be, instead of taking 10 damage, you're taking 2 damage. So it's a pretty nice damage reducer for 2 energy and a discard. Cycling Madness. Man, this card's cut weird. I've said it before, but I was originally going to wait to do this once the official Spin Master scans would come out. But I got impatient and I wanted to do this. So everything that I'm pulling is from, I believe, the Bakugan Wiki. The credit will be in the description, I guess. Cycling Madness costs 3. You draw a card, and your opponent discards a card. Return this to the bottom of your deck. For 3 energy, getting your opponent to discard a card is okay. It's not preferred, but the fact that you're also getting to draw a card, and that's pretty good itself. It replaces itself. And then it goes to the bottom of the deck, so you're not technically taking any damage. It's almost as if you didn't play it. And that's nice. So, all in all, in the right deck, it's worth it. Dark Boost, 2 energy, plus 5 damage. That's just a good ratio. Dark Fire, 4 energy for plus 9 damage. I like the other one better. I think that the little cost difference makes it a little more worthwhile. But, I mean, 4 for 9 is still above the curve. Darkus Strike only costs 3 energy, and it gives you plus 6, so it's dead on the curve whenever it talks about damage, energy to damage ratios and all that. And it says if Darkus, you can choose a player to discard a card. So, it's decent alone, not great. If you're playing Darkus, your opponent's also losing a card in hand, so it gives you a little bit more of advantage. I'd like to see a deck built around just letting your opponent have a bad time. So this next card is Garganoid's Gaze. It only costs 2 energy, which is phenomenal for what it does. It says destroy a hero with cost 4 or less, or 4 energy or less. Now, cards that give little specifications like that can either be good or bad depending on the other cards in the game. 4 or less in this case, well, it'll stop your opponent's Dans, which are really good cards. It stops your opponent's Wintons. So there's a lot of key heroes that this will stop and really hinder your opponent. So As of right now, really good card. I think almost an always include if you're playing Darkus. That's a big statement to make, but I feel that way. Gravity Shift, 5 energy. Choose a Bakugan. Your opponent chooses if it gets plus 1000 B or plus 10 damage. This card is just terrible. I do not like this card. I have tried to like this card, seeing if there was certain ways that I could spin it to make it work, but it's just not good. Now, if it was cheaper and it had that effect, it could be interesting. Like, let's say it only had a, 2 or 3 cost. 3, in my opinion, would still be pushing it because your opponent's choosing, but it would allow you to combo it and Pyrus with cards that flip the victory condition. So that would be a nice little 2-card combo. But the fact your opponent chooses and the amount of energy that this is going to cost, it'll almost never be a good thing for you. So I'm just not a fan. I guess it's in here for reasons, but I'm not a huge fan. Next card. Hero's Demise. 4 energy, destroy a hero. It's like the one we talked about earlier, but it's double the cost. But for double the cost, you can destroy any hero. So it's not bad. However, I do still prefer the other one because it's cheaper and it gets rid of some of the big name heroes. So I like the other one a bit better. Might of Night. 2 cost, give something Shadow Strike. Wonderful off the bat. But if you sacrifice, you can discard a card for plus 5 damage. I almost would rarely use the sacrifice ability for this. The Shadow Strike is what I like on this, especially if you're building some form of trap deck. I love the idea of a trap deck, so Might of Nights, it's useful. Night Lightning, 4 energy, draw a card. Right off the bat, that's just bad. But it has a sacrifice ability. It says you can discard a card for plus 3 damage. That's good. You can use this any number of times. That's great. So you will always have at least 1 card to discard. Play this card on someone with a double strike, and that's 6 damage for everything you discard. It's a little finicky, and depending on how much your opponent's energy, or how much energy your opponent has, it wouldn't be great to go all out with this, but in the right situations, this card can definitely win you games. Prismatic Bolt, 4 energy for 300 B power. That's terrible, but for 6 damage, which is also below the curve. But the fact that you're getting a little bit of both makes the energy costs better. I'm not a huge fan of the ones that give both like this. There's very few decks and situations that could take use of this well. So all in all, this is a common that I will pass on most times. Prismatic Shield, 1 energy for 200 B. It's on par. I wouldn't use it just for the fact that most decks, like I've stated before, if you're watching these in order, well, late game, those cards just become useless. And early game, that's not a big enough boost to really help. If you're playing Aquas, it can help with flow, but there's better ways to help with flow. So it's a combo I'll pass on. Rite of Darkus, 5 energy. Choose a player to discard a card for each Darkus Bakugan on your team. This, you should never play unless you're just playing Darkus. If you're playing 2 Darkus, there are cards that do this better. If you're playing 1 Darkus, there are cards that do this better. The only time this card is decent is if you're playing 3 Darkus. So it's there for the mono. Shadeblade, 0 cost card. That's always nice. For plus 2 damage. Okay. Again, I like it for flow, but for what it is by itself, not my favorite. Shadow Coil, 3 energy for 4 damage. That's not good, but if it's discarded, you can play it for free. So in the right decks, this is just free damage, so it has its purposes. Shadow Hue, this is another one of those cards I'm not a huge fan of. 2 energy for 100 B. 2 energy is normally 400. And 2 energy for 3 damage. That's 2 energy should be 4 damage. And again, it's so little of both that very few situations will it actually help. Shadow Trap. 5 energy for -3 damage. I don't like that. But sacrifice. You may discard a card for -3 for all enemy Bakugan instead. So in a team attack, you're stopping 9 damage. I feel like the 5 energy that you would spend on Shadow Trap, if you're getting ready to eat a team attack, you would rather save it and hope you get a flip card, because a stop all for 3 or 4 would be a lot better than just taking 9 less. Because team attacks, I've seen them so much higher than 9 damage that 5 energy seems a little better spent in other ways. Smoke Armor, 3 for 5. Not a good conversion rate, but it's there if you have no better options. There are better options. Stone Skin, a better option. 3 damage for 200, but if you discard a card, it's 3 for 8. That's basically, this would even be, well, it actually wouldn't be good on 4 damage or 4 energy, but normally this would be a 4 energy card if it wasn't a sacrifice ability. So 1 card and extra energy, it's good for its Darkus. Storm Generator, did I skip a card? Sure didn't. 3 energy plus 300B. Sacrifice. You may discard a card to return this to your hand. This is one of those that I just don't like. Some may, because it keeps bouncing back if you discard cards. But why would you want to discard a card to get a card that only gives you 300B power back? Not a fan. Tainted Touch. 2 energy for 2 damage. Not good to start. Sacrifice. 2 energy for 7 damage. That's a good damage boost. Terrify is also a 4 cost. -6 damage. I'm not a huge fan of their damage reducing effects for one reason and one reason only. Shadow Strike is a thing. Well, that's not the only reason, but that's a good reason. I like others better. Thought Decay. This is the better card that I was talking about earlier, unless you're playing mono. 4 energy, choose a player to discard 2 cards. It says choose a player. So if you have 2 free play discard cards, 4 energy, you're playing them both. Or you can spend 4 energy to whittle down your opponent's hand. I like Thought Decay. Umbral Slash. 2 energy for this card as well. Well, not as well, the last one's 4, but 2 energy. Plus 100B for each flip card in your discard pile. If this didn't say flip card, like if this said anything other than flip card, if this said for each action in your discard pile, I'd like it. On heroes, in the right deck for heroes, cool. But flip cards, the 2 for 1 for each, it might eventually help, but normally I would just see this card being charged. Unrivaled Jump, 5 energy for plus 900B. That is just a below the curve boost. So there's that. It's a rival jump. Wither, 1 for -3. Moving on into evolutions, we have Diamond Garganoid Ultra. 5 energy to play it, 700B power, so it's a bit up there in Bs, but not great for the 5 energy slot. 9 damage. Okay, that's a decent bit, but where this one starts to shine is the fact that if you land on a shield, which is giving you B power, it's also giving you an extra 800 B power. So it can start getting up there pretty quickly. I can easily see this jumping to about, 1800 B? 16 to 18, somewhere around there. That's not bad for a 5-drop, but you gotta play your cards and place your cores right, so. Diamondelius, 7 energy. It's pretty high, but it's just a static 1500 B. 1500 is really good. The 10 energy Ventus evolution is also 1500 B at 10 cost. Granted, it has better damage, but 8 damage is still not too bad, and 1500 would be hard to beat, so you'll probably be dealing it. Hyper Dragonoid, 4 energy for 1000 B, good Bs, 6 damage, damage, but not bad. Hyper Fangzor, 4 energy, cool. 900 B, okay, not bad. Especially considering that it won't be lowered, because you have Shadow Strike, just static. And 5 damage, so you can definitely work around this. Hyper Hydrus. This one's 3 energy, and it is one of those that has an ability if you land on a green fist. So if you're gaining damage from the green fist, you're also gaining 600 Bs. But it is still, it almost has to land on the green fist to be worth it, because it'll be 1000 B at 3 energy, which is great if you land on it. Otherwise, it's just But if you're playing a green fist deck with Darkus, wonderful, wonderful evolution. Hyper Hydrus Ultra, also 3 energy, but it's for the Ultra version. It just has a static 1000 B power, which is really good for 3 energy. Its damage is pretty weak. I believe this is 3. I honestly can't read it. It's 3 or 4. Gotta love online scans. But if you land on a Flaming Fist, which is one of the harder ones to hit because of the odds of them being on the field, plus 5 damage and Shadow Strike. So the damage jumps up a decent bit and nothing can be lowered. So if you hit the right fist, it's decent. And I mean, either way, the 1000 Bs at 3 energy, not bad. Hypertrox, 3 energy to evolve, 900 B power, 2 damage. Whenever you play this card, choose a player to discard a card. That can also be actually pretty decent. And the fact that I don't know how multiple evolution decks will end up working, but Hyper is the base, so you can probably evolve it again to get it better later. Because, I mean, the 900B is not bad, especially for turn 3. And the fact that your opponent may be losing a card, or you may be getting a free play, it could be worth it. It has its spots. Hyper Nilius, 3 energy, 800 B power, 3 damage. And Victor, you can discard a card for plus 2 damage. You may use this any number of times. It's like the card that we talked about earlier, but it's on an evolution. So as long as you win, you can just dump your hand if your opponent doesn't have any energy left. And you could deal quite a bit of damage with this card. Titan Halcor Ultra, 5 energy for this one. And let's see, that's 1000 B power, 1 damage. Okay. But it gets plus 1 damage for each flip card in your discard pile. This is another one of those flips and discard. If it said anything other than flip, I would like this better. If it was a plus 1 damage for each action in your discard pile, this card would be phenomenal. I'd love it. But I don't like the fact that it's flip cards. I don't want to fill that many flip cards in my deck. And if they're all in my discard pile, I don't care about this damage, really. I would rather have the flip cards in my deck. I don't know. Titan Mantanoid Ultra. When you discard a card, this gets plus 400 B. This can be abused. 10 damage, 400 B base. Play that card earlier that lets you discard 2. That's an extra 800 B, just right off the top. It's not too bad. The 10 damage is nice too. Now for the beautiful Darkus Elite Titan Nilius. It does cost 6 to bring in, so it's a little expensive. It has 1300 B, which is not bad. 4 damage, which is not great. But whenever you win, it kind of has the other ability, but better. You can discard a card for plus 4 damage as many times as you want. So you can combo quite a bit off of this card, and it's not too shabby. And let's move on into flip cards. We're going to start with Black Hole. I love the art on this card. It's a little simplistic, but it's just kind of beautiful and it looks nice. It's 3 energy, and once you play it, it ends your turn. The turn is over, nothing else can happen, and you start the next turn. Nothing can be played, damage goes away, and nothing recharges. So it starts a new turn from that point. Sea Darkus, Just the basic Cease card for itself. 0 cost, only does Darkus. Cease Chaos, 0 for Chaos. Cease Outsiders. This is the basic 3-drop, stops all non-Darkus. These are good. Cease Serenity. For 1 energy, you stop 2. Chaos and Ventus. And Cease Ventus, just another one of the 0-drop Cease cards. Pact of Darkness. This card, in my humblest opinion, is the best flip card in the game so far. It only stops non-Darkus, so if you're facing Darkus, it's not going to help you, but that's... I mean, you got quite a few other attributes that can be played. Sacrifice. You can make the card, this card free. If you have 1 card in hand and flip this flip card, boom. You don't even have to play the energy. If you played things earlier and you flip this, you're fine. Wonderful flip card. Punish. 2 energy for it. Choose a player to discard a card. You might be able to play something for free. Your opponent might just lose a card. I don't think I like this as a flip. I prefer this one as an action. Shadow Breath. 4 energy. Take control of a hero. Okay, so if your opponent has good cards, let's say they play that, I don't know, 10-drop Leah. For yours, it's 4. Not bad, depending on how your opponent's playing the deck, but it is situational. Still, it's rude. Moving into heroes. What I was just talking about being stolen, we're beginning with Benton Dusk. 4 energy for the card, and when you discard a card, choose a Bakugan to get plus 200 B power and plus 2 damage. It's pretty good. If you're doing a really heavy discard-based deck, this card will end up helping quite a bit over the course of the game. So, in the right deck, definitely an include. You have C, a wonderful Darkus hero. For 2 energy, which is extremely cheap, every one of your Darkus gets Shadow Strike. Mono Darkus, this is just amazing. Now, if you deal 10 or more damage in an attack, you can draw 3 cards. I have a question on this that I have not asked Ventus Knight. Whenever it says you deal 10 or more damage, from the way that we've been reading it, I believe the damage actually has to be flipped to be dealt. But if I'm wrong, please correct me and let me know. But either way, this is such a good card. I love it. China Riot, good for your just like free plays. 4 energy is quite a bit, but the fact that it has the discard, you can play it for free, it can be helpful. Kurin, 2 energy. When you play a flip card, you can draw a card. Not bad. Lightning, 2 energy. Flip cards cost you 1 energy less to play. I feel this will be better in the future. I don't know what all's going to come out whenever it comes to reducing prices for your flip cards. But this is a decent counter for some Frost Strike if you're playing a little bit against that. And some of the cards that are just okay and you don't really care if they flip, this could start making them to where you kind of want them to flip because you might not be paying for them, and that's decent. And I believe this is the last card that we're going to be talking about today, and that is Magnus. He costs 8. He's expensive, but when you play him, a Bakugan gets 5,000 B power. So the turn that you play this card, you are just basically winning unless your opponent pulls something cheeky. And on top of that, the effect that stays is the fact that when you win, you can discard a card to give a Bakugan damage equal to the discarded card's energy cost. If you're packing your deck with some high energy things, one simple discard could pump up your damage and possibly play it for free. So it's an interesting effect. The core effect is a little better. That 5,000 is hard to beat. But all in all, in the right deck, Magnus is Magnus is interesting. But that's the end of the Darkus set review. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell because there will be more for this and eventually Resurgence. So make sure you do all the things that keeps you notified. There'll be another one of these next week. But until then, you'll see me when you see me.